The international community is set to increase the pressure on Syria, with Britain, France and the United States leading a push for United Nations action against the regime of President Bashar al-Assad. The Arab League will present its plan to the Security Council in New York in a few hours, but Russia is threatening to veto any resolution, claiming it's a path to civil war. Meanwhile, the Syrian government is continuing its crackdown on rebels amid claims that 100 people have been killed in the last 3 days. Europe correspondent Philip Williams reports.
Gunfire echoes across the Syrian capital as government troops retake control of the suburbs of Damascus that had been held by rebel forces. Activists claim more than 100 people have been killed in 3 days of fighting. Video uploaded to the internet reportedly shows funerals of victims of the crackdown. The pictures show thousands marching in the procession and chanting anti-government slogans. The government claims the violence was caused by terrorists, using state television to show weapons it says were confiscated, and issuing this statement.
This operation is a duty for the government in enforcing law and order to end the chaos that the terrorist groups have produced. These operations came after numerous clashes between citizens and saboteurs in the eastern outskirts of Damascus, and after a request by the citizens for the security forces to intervene immediately to return stability and security.
With talks about to get underway at the United Nations Security Council in New York, the crackdown will only increase the international pressure on the regime of President Bashar al-Assad. The Arab League will present its proposal for a resolution in Syria, calling on President Assad to resign and hand over power to a unity government. The plan has the backing of Britain, France and the United States.
We think that what is contained in this resolution is quite straightforward. There are no sanctions, there is no use of force or threat of the use of force, as some have alleged. It is primarily a straightforward condemnation of what has transpired, a call upon the government of Syria to adhere to the commitments it made to the Arab League, and an endorsement of the Arab League plan, which we think is vitally important and the minimum that the Council should do.
But it's struggling to persuade the Russians and the Chinese, which both have veto power on the Security Council.
We're discussing with the Russians and other partners how best to use all the levers at the command of the international community and the United Nations to press the Syrian government to stop its appalling and ultimately ineffective and harmful repression.
Syrian opposition groups say the resolution reflects the will of the Syrian people.
I appeal to Russia, which has long historical ties with the Syrian people, to prevent the Assad regime from exploiting the Russian support in order to continue its oppression of the Syrian people. Any UN resolution that does not put an end to the rule of the president will further lead us to the edge of civil war.
Russia has previously said it will veto any resolution, but yesterday its Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov appeared to soften his rhetoric.
The Arab League want to present their new decisions and new ideas to the UN Security Council. We will certainly listen to them, but at the same time we declared that we need to read the report itself, on which the decisions to be presented to the UN Security Council were based.
And that has raised hopes among some diplomats that although the Russians won't vote in favour, it could be persuaded to abstain, allowing the resolution to pass. Philip Williams, Late Line.